What's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to be discussing some of my biggest fears and flaws, but also these are things that I believe a lot of people suffer with today. And these are just personally some of my flaws and fears that I'm going to be discussing, but to the broad spectrum of people, I feel like this gets neglected more often than not. So I'm going to start with my biggest one. My biggest fear is betraying myself. Betraying myself. And the reason for this is because, if you think about it, if you're betraying yourself, you're going against your own values, your own emotions, your own needs in particular. And some examples of this would be just saying, for example, saying yes to something when you should really be saying no to it, minimizing your own needs, or even just ignoring your own emotions, speaking out when you don't feel comfortable in a situation. If you can do that, that is. When you betray yourself, this a lot of times can be a form of trauma as well that you could be going through. But for me at least, that is one of my biggest fears, is betraying myself, because the more you do that over and over and over again, your authentic self, it adds on. It adds on, and it'll eventually make you feel like you're a fake. You'll feel like you're a fake person. You'll be projecting these emotions and feelings to other people, and they won't know how to deal or react with them eventually. It's one of those things that over time can build up and build up and build up like a volcano until it erupts into a situation that can't be dealt with. So, in my opinion, if you feel like you're betraying yourself in any way, that should be addressed more than anything else. Even if you've made a lot of errors in life up to this point, because let's be honest, we all have. We're human. If you've made errors, the best way you can address these at first is look at yourself. Look internally. Are you betraying yourself? Are you doing something you don't feel comfortable with? And the next step of action for this would ultimately be to, in that moment, whatever that is, however you feel like you're betraying yourself, start from that moment on to do the right thing. Do the right thing. It can be really tough to speak out, to let someone know how you're really feeling, and you might even feel like they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me this?" And you might feel like you're judged. But ultimately, if you express it to them, if they truly care about you and love you, they will listen. They might at first be shocked, and they might even be mad for whatever reason, but at the end of the day, if they care about you, they will listen to you, and you will feel better about expressing your own emotions. So that is number one, betraying yourself. Number two is overthinking. Now, I know for me, overthinking a lot of times, how do I describe this to you? I describe this in a way of thinking about a situation that has not happened yet, and then when that situation finally does happen, you look back on it and you look at it and you're like, why was I overthinking it like that? 9 times out of 10, it's not even going to end up being how you're thinking in your head. You go through every situation with it, then you finally get to it, and you look back and you're like, why did I waste days, nights, weeks, months, years thinking about that? When in reality, it wasn't that bad. And by the way, if it is going to be bad when you get to it, you deal with it then. For example, even if somebody's going to, let's say, they're going to court, or something like this, they have something that is serious down the road. Yes, it is a serious situation, but by the time you get there, and if you're trying to get better in the meantime before you have to go deal with that, try not to overthink it, because then when you get there and if you show them the improvement you've been making, a lot of times they will listen to you. That's just an example, though. The whole point to this is it's easier said than done, but trying not to overthink, trying not to, will ultimately help your mental health as well and reduce those stress levels you have and improve your mental health as well. So that's number 2, overthinking. And these are things I have problems with myself. Number 3, those negative thoughts about yourself, how maybe people perceive you. Now, negative thoughts are another thing. A lot of times they can come from things such as underlying mental health disorders, trauma, but there are a lot of other underlying causes of this as well. Negative thoughts, in my own opinion, we all suffer with, every one of us. And if anyone claims they don't, then they have way too much pride. I'm just going to be honest with you. Everyone has negative thoughts about themselves at some point in their life. At some point they do. Now, the key with negative thoughts, and for me in particular, how do I deal with negative thoughts? When it's really bothering me, I'll take that negative thought and I like to write it down, whatever that negative thought may be, regardless of what it may be. And then I like to break it down and think about, why am I thinking, why am I projecting all my time, my effort, my emotion into this negative thought about myself, about someone else, why am I judging them? Why is there a stereotype which is causing negative thoughts of my own? And then I like to address the problem and look at it. And how I look at it is that negative thought of, okay, it's just a thought, regardless of what that thought may be. And if it's toward even someone else, remember, how would you feel if you were that person? If you were that person, you were thinking about negatively or whatnot, you were pushing those negative thoughts to, and you're that person. At the end of the day, we're all just humans. We're all just humans. We have to get back to, in a sense, that feeling of when we were all children, where we didn't really care to an extent. Where obviously we grow up and we become adults, but with that we gain experiences, and we gain negative experiences with that, and positive experiences, but negative experiences, which a lot of times can cause positive and negative emotions, and also just negative thoughts in general. And I know it's once again easier said than done, but trying to reduce those negative thoughts and addressing them will ultimately help you long term deal with them. And once again, a lot of this can sometimes come from trauma, a lot of times, and underlying disorders. That's why you should be trying to address them and get to the stem of the problem. Okay, now finally, number 4. If you made it this far, like and subscribe. I cover all things mental health. Number 4, projecting my problems to people around me. This goes with everything. If you're, for example, betraying yourself, if you're overthinking all the time and you're having a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of times you will project these problems to your loved ones around you, or even just to coworkers around you. And you might not even realize it when you're doing it. You might not even be talking, but it could be that body language as well. I know for me, a lot of times personally, and I'm just speaking from experience, I sometimes carry, I feel like, some tense body language, especially in the morning. Not because I'm a morning person, but just for me to get my day started. For example, when I'm working, I typically, as the day goes on, I'll become a little bit more talkative. But sometimes I feel like I can give across, sometimes, I'm not going to say serious, but just sometimes some vibes of just like, I'm mad at something. I'm mad at the world for whatever reason. And one reason for that, a lot of times, it can come from things of overthinking and not even realizing that they're even, for example, just being nonverbal about it in the morning or whatnot, or just in general, not realizing it, you project it to other people around you. So understanding those cues as well. A lot of times when you're projecting these negative emotions or these problems, you won't even realize it. And that's why if you can address what we've discussed a little earlier, the overthinking, the racing thoughts, it'll make it to where it will minimize and reduce projecting those problems to others. because ultimately you don't want to be projecting you don't want to be projecting negative thoughts to your loved ones around you, or your wife or your husband. And we all do it, but recognizing it and talking to the people around you about it and asking them, hey, how do I present myself to you? Or how are there times where I give you weird vibes, or like I'm mad, like you're mad, or I come across as like there's a problem? Ask your loved one about it, because if you communicate these things, you can start addressing these things. And everyone's different. Some of us are more quiet than others naturally. That's normal. But there are times where, regardless, when you've been with somebody for so long, you realize these emotional swings in your relationships with others, and it's good to address these things, because things like this, once again, being just naturally quiet and naturally being a little bit more bottled up, or being a little bit more on the talkative side, that's normal. But when you make a complete switch from one side to the other on the pendulum, that could be a cause for concern. So talk to your family, talk to your loved ones about this, because just having that open line of communication will make a big difference for you in general. I know that was kind of everywhere, but I just wanted to go over some of my biggest flaws, some of my biggest fears in general, and how I'm addressing these throughout this year. And not just because it's a new year, but because we're always evolving, we're always maturing as well. And it's something that I feel like a lot of us can learn from, and we all have a lot of similar problems. Love you all. Like, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment if you want. We'll put out more mental health videos, and I will be, I'm working on the David and Goliath biblical video as well. We're going to continue to have those as well, and the shorts, the running shorts as well. So just stay tuned. We'll continue to put stuff out. Leave a comment. Love you all.